Columns, columns everywhere, and not a tetrad in sight. This is the debut edition of Game Gear Express. Welcome to Game Gear Express, a companion series to Sega Masters that will take a chronological look at the worldwide library for Sega's handheld console, which unsuccessfully tried to compete against Nintendo's best-selling Game Boy Portable, but still carved out a place in the hearts of Sega diehards. Our series kicks off with a rather familiar name in the Sega universe, Columns, which appeared in the arcades and on the different platforms. In case you were wondering, yes, it was Sega's answer to a certain Soviet puzzle game that had become a worldwide phenomenon, especially for the competition. In fact, Columns would follow a very similar path to Tetris, from its origins in the computer world to being used to launch a new handheld game system. Columns was actually the creation of J. Gearston, a computer whiz who crafted the game while working for Hewlett-Packard in 1989. Obviously designed as a somewhat different twist on Tetris, Columns was originally written for the Little Scene X Windows system on Unix computers, and was subsequently ported to other platforms, such as this DOS version we're seeing here, as well as Macintosh, Windows, and Atari ST. Sega had actually tried to bring Tetris itself to their consoles around this time, only to be stymied by various legal issues, so they went looking for the next best thing. And once they discovered Columns, they purchased the rights from Gearston and off they went, hoping to make the game their Tetris. Under Sega's stewardship, Columns first appeared in the arcades in early 1990 and pretty much dressed the computer game up in its now familiar ancient Greece theme, but still played the same. While it didn't match Tetris' coin-op success, it still did well enough to be ported to the Genesis and the Master System, and was eventually followed by quite a few sequels, remakes, and clones. But Columns' real battle would be in the handheld arena against this cart. By late 1990, the Game Boy had become a portable juggernaut, mainly thanks to Nintendo's decision to have Tetris as the pack-in title, which sold Game Boys left and right. So Sega decided to offer a counterpoint to Nintendo's idea by bundling their own puzzler with the Game Gear for its launch in Japan on October 6, 1990, and its subsequent debut in North America on April 15, 1991. Sega was banking on Columns demonstrating how the Game Boy's bland, monochrome visuals would easily be dwarfed by the Game Gear's bright, vibrant colors and backlit screen. And thus began Sega's main marketing strategy for the Game Gear, boasting about their handheld's colorful superiority over the competition, which actually would take a life unto itself to say the least. Anyway, to the game itself, which has a pair of game modes to choose from, as well as customizable options such as difficulty, starting level, and others. The original mode is your straightforward arcade mode, which does follow Tetris in that you have to arrange objects that slowly drop down into a playing field, trying to survive as long as you can. Instead of falling tetrominos, you're manipulating vertical stacks, or columns, composed of 3 randomly colored gems. The object is to stack each descending column against each other, attempting to line up at least 3 gems of the same color in a row. Each stack is in a fixed vertical formation that can't be rotated horizontally. All you can do is cycle the colors within each column to try and make the required matches. Successfully arranging at least 3 similarly colored gems in either a horizontal, vertical, or diagonal row will cause them to disappear. And that's pretty much the gameplay, making matches to earn points while obviously keeping the well from overflowing. Every time you knock out 50 gems, you instantly advance to the next level where the columns begin to fall faster. Fortunately, the responsive controls are easy to understand and enable you to pull off some quick moves, especially when the columns land, since you're given a split second for a quick movement or rotation before they settle. As you might imagine, the way the unused gems fall into the spaces vacated by the matched jewels allows for combos and chain reactions to really clear out the screen while raking in the points. And as usual, the game ends should the pieces spill over the top of the screen. Like most puzzle games, especially on portable consoles, Columns favors gameplay over graphics, and it shows with the rather simple visuals. Plus, the card also opted for its own unique look instead of trying to recreate the coin-op's graphics like its console brethren. You only get a single background that depicts what looks like a Mediterranean city, and it's okay but nothing special. The gems themselves do look pretty nice against the black playing field, and the Game Gear's backlit screen helps give them an extra shiny look. A few touches do help the visuals from becoming too monotonous, Columns offers a few customization options for the pieces if gems aren't your thing, such as fruit, dice, blocks, and others. This is just a matter of preference that doesn't have any direct effect on the gameplay. Just be aware some designs work better than others on the handheld's LCD screen. Another cool feature is the sky in the background that changes color each time you advance the level to depict the passage of time in a day, from a bright afternoon to dusk to evening, ultimately ending with a starry night and a full moon. The soundtrack consists of 3 selectable tunes, all of them simplified versions of the music tracks from the Genesis port, which are supposedly named after the 3 fates of Greek mythology, that being Clothos, Lacacius, and Atropos. While each track is an obvious step down from its 16-bit counterpart, all 3 are rather pleasant to listen to, and the music speeds up to match the increasingly intense action as well. So Columns is solidly put together for the most part, and the action is pretty engaging, but a few flaws do pop up that keep it from stepping out of Tetris' massive shadow. What made Tetris so successful was the simple gameplay that anybody could just jump in and enjoy, not so much with Column. Moving around fixed vertical columns and rotating the colors within them can be fun for a time, but doesn't quite offer as much depth and possibilities as manipulating differently shaped blocks to fill lines, and it takes time to really understand the game's mechanics. The problem is, the game doesn't give you that time as the speed ramps up way too quickly as you advance through the levels. Because of this, the action becomes much too overwhelming for you to handle just a few minutes into your session. Before long, you're just throwing the stacks around left and right, hoping chain reactions occur and mainly relying on luck instead of actual strategy to survive. A more gradual learning curve would have helped the gameplay immensely. You're also denied the opportunity of seeing how many levels you can pass in the original mode, since the handheld version of Columns tops out at level 9, and never advances past it, meaning there's no level 10 and so forth. That's right, once you reach level 9, you're essentially stuck there indefinitely, moving columns around at a frantic rate until your game eventually concludes. High scores are pretty much the only benchmarks in this game. If original mode isn't your thing, you can challenge the Flash mode that functions as a time trial mode, or rather Columns' version of Tetris' Mode B. Here you're tasked with making matches to dig your way through the pre-formed pile of gems in order to reach and eliminate the flashing gem at the bottom of the playing field. It's a decent change of pace that gives you an actual goal, though your only reward for knocking out the flashing gem is a quick "You did it!" message before getting booted back to the title screen. And Columns does sport a versus mode that my emulator prevents me from showing you, since it's limited to person versus person over the gear-to-gear cable. No CPU opponents are available. Basically, you compete head-to-head with a friend in either the original or Flash modes to see who can survive the longest in a set number of matches while eliminating gems. You can also attack your opponent as making combos on your side will add a horizontal row of blocks at the bottom of your buddy's screen, compressing their space and leaving them with less room to work. So while Columns might have seemed special when it first came out in 1990 and may have sold a few Game Gears, it never really fulfilled Sega's hopes of being a Tetris killer, even with its vibrant colors. But let's face it, Tetris is pretty much untouchable with its timeless gameplay that has managed to hold up over the years. You can't say the same about Columns, especially since other portable puzzlers have appeared in the following quarter century, many of which even render this game almost obsolete by improving on the formula. That's not to say Columns is a bad game, because it's not. It still contains plenty of fun, addicting action for those willing to press on through the game's shortcomings and flaws, and is a solid choice to kill a few minutes here and there. It may not be the shiniest gem in the puzzle game universe, but Columns is still a decent start to the Game Gear lineup and gives a glimpse of what's to come for the portable, for better or for worse.